All right, y'all. So, welcome in, welcome in. Hopefully, my volume is good. We're about to look at a class action complaint. Now, what the articles are linking to, the document they're linking to, does not have a signature on it. So, I'm still reading it because it is very in depth, and I still believe this would be the basis of it. But I still want to say it ahead of time after I finished really reading it and highlighting. There's no signature at the bottom. So they said that it was filed on Friday, February 7th, yesterday. But we're going to go through this. And I will say this now, from my perspective of social media, what I was getting, they did not accurately describe the reason this lawsuit exists. If I go by the headlines, this lawsuit exists because of DEI being removed from Target. That's not what they're being sued for. So we're going to look at this. There's going to be some language and viewpoints in here that are, how can I put it, offensive. It can be offensive depending on, where your beliefs lie. So that's why I'm just going to stick to the lawsuit, because it, I was just, now, from what I gather, if I take away that part, they're just like money is green, and y'all reduce the money we could have made. That's where it goes. But let me go ahead and get you into this. Go ahead and grab a snack, grab a drink. You know how these lawsuits go. It's a class action lawsuit, so they laid out a lot in here, and we're gonna go over it. And I hope y'all enjoy the information at least. But yeah, the headlines I was getting was misleading about this. So hey, y'all coming in. Hey. Okay. So, Linda, is Linda still in here? Yes, she is. Linda, hey, Linda. Okay, so the only thing, Linda, if you see anybody saying something offensive, just time them out for the 24 hours. You ain't got to give them a warning. If they go offensive, just time them out 24 hours, keep it moving. American born, if you over there on legal at some point, same thing. 24 hours, just time them out. We don't need the back and forth. We're just going to go over the information that is in this lawsuit. All right, so it says, this is a class action brought on behalf of persons and entities that purchased or otherwise acquired Target common stock between August 26, 2022 and November 19th, 2024. And I will tell you now that the issues are very much heavily related to 2022 and 2023. The recent DEI issues happened end of 2024. Now, obviously, we're into 2025. So keep that time frame in mind as well, that it is not related to some of these misleading headlines and what they're trying to say it's related to. Okay, it says the claims asserted herein are alleged against Target and certain of the company's senior execs and arise under sections 10B, 14A, and 20A of the Securities Exchange Act of 1934 and rules 10B5 and 14A9 promulgated thereunder. Target misled investors by making false and misleading statements about Target's environmental, social, and governance (ESG) and diversity, equity, and inclusion (DEI) mandates that led to widespread customer boycotts following Target's 2023 LGBT Pride campaign. The negative effects of the campaign on Target's business, including a subsequent campaign in 2024, led to a massive decline in Target's stock price. Specifically, the 2023 LGBT Pride campaign offended certain Target customers, provoking consumer backlash and boycotts that caused Target's sales to fall for the first time in 6 years. Unbeknownst to investors, and contrary to Target's public statements, Target's chief executive officer, Brian C. Cornell, and his board of directors did not oversee or disclose the known risks of Target's 2023 LGBT Pride campaign and the 2024 campaign. This deceit through misleading statements in the company's public filings, including its 10-Ks and proxy statements, caused Target's investors to purchase Target stock at artificially inflated prices and to unknowingly support Target's board and management in their misuse of investor funds to serve political and social goals. As the truth of the negative effect of these campaigns came to light, Target suffered tens of billions of losses in its market capitalization from May 2023 through present. Beginning in May 2023, shortly after the campaign was launched, Target's stock price suffered precipitous declines and has never recovered. For instance, on November 20th, 2024, Target's stock price suffered a decline of 22% in one day, wiping out $16 billion in market cap. Now, that's one of the more present times. Yes, what they're citing throughout the rest of this lawsuit is mostly not with 2024, end of 2024. Target reported disappointing earnings and guidance as it continued to grapple with lingering effects of its ill-advised DEI campaigns that turned away customers and apparently some customers for good. Target's performance during this period was in stark contrast to its main rival, Walmart, which demonstrated stellar performance during the same time frame, showing that at Target's underperformance was due to the continued backlash from its campaigns, further eroding its profitability and damaging investors. Cornell and current and former members of Target's board have violated Sections 10B and 14A of the Exchange Act and Rules 10B5 and 14A9 promulgated thereunder by making or causing Target to issue misleading statements to investors, including that Target's quarterly SEC filings and annual reports filed during the class period omitted that Target was subject to the risk of consumer boycotts because of its ESG DEI initiatives like the 2023 LGBT Pride campaign. Target's 2023 annual proxy statement falsely and misleadingly stated that Target's board and its committees oversaw social and political issues and risks arising from Target's pursuit of ESG DEI mandates, adopted Target's mandates in order to enhance shareholder value, and proposed executive compensation plans that were aligned with shareholder value. And Target and its CEO and board chairman Cornell misleadingly downplayed the scope of consumer boycotts after they began. And I also would like to point out that, you know what? No, I'll stick to the rivers and the lakes that I'm used to, and that's not something I'm very well versed in. I was about to say something about the current end of quarter reports, but I'm not well versed in that, so I'm going to stay in my lane and not say anything. Okay. It says plaintiff purchased Target common stock during the class period and suffered damages as a result of defendants' violations of the federal securities laws, as further alleged herein. Yeah, let me not say anything. Defendant Cornell has served as Target's chairman and CEO at all relevant times. Defendant Cornell, because of his position with the company, possessed the power and authority to control the contents of the company's reports to the SEC, press releases, and presentations to securities analysts, money and portfolio managers, and institutional investors, i.e. the market. Defendant Cornell was provided with copies of the company's reports and press releases alleged herein to be materially false prior to or shortly after their issuance and had the ability and opportunity to prevent their issuance or cause them to be corrected. Indeed, Defendant Cornell personally signed the annual reports, annual proxy statements, and other filings that contain the misstatements alleged herein. Because of his position and access to material public information available to him, Defendant Cornell knew that the adverse facts specified herein had not been disclosed to and were being concealed from the public, and that the positive representations which were being made were then materially false. Defendant Cornell is liable for the false statements pleaded herein. Defendant David P. Abney is a Target director. Defendant Douglas Baker is a Target director. Defendant George Barrett is a Target director. Defendant Gail Boudreaux is a Target director. Defendant Robert Edwards is a Target director. Defendant Melanie L. Healy is a former Target director and was a Target director when Target issued the 2023 proxy. Defendant Donald R. Nouse is a Target director. Christine Lozano, Grace Puma, Derica Rice, and Dimitri Stockton were our Target directors. I'm going down to our relevant parts. Okay. Oops, did I go too far? I did. I didn't know the highlights didn't load. Hold on. Okay. Hold on. Okay, by reason of the individual defendant's positions on Target board, including Defendant Cornell and his position as Target's chairman of the board and CEO, the individual defendants possess the power and authority to control the contents of Target's proxy statements and annual reports. They were provided with copies of Target's proxy statements and had the ability and opportunity to prevent their issuance or cause them to be corrected. Because of their positions with Target and the access to material, non-public information available to them but not to the public, the defendants, including CEO Cornell, knew that the adverse facts specified herein had not been disclosed to and were being concealed from the public, and that the positive representations being made were then materially false and misleading. Factual allegations. Target has long cultivated a classic all American image and sells itself as the favorite retailer of middle class American families. But for years, Target's board and management wasted Target's financial and reputational capital pursuing the board's and management's personal ESG DEI interests while falsely and misleadingly portraying the risks of this strategy to Target's shareholders in order to artificially inflate Target's stock price and secure the board's reelection. In May 2023, Target faced immense customer backlash due to its ambitious LGBT Pride Month marketing and sales campaign, one of its featured ESG DEI initiatives. The 2023 LGBT Pride campaign prompted a strong adverse reaction from a large portion of Target's customer base, in particular because it featured marketing and products directed to children, embroiling Target in a culture war. These risks were no surprise to Target's management. In 2016, Target became the central battleground of a vitriolic national debate over transgender rights after Target published an antagonistic response to North Carolina's transgender bathroom law. Several customer boycotts ensued, causing Target to forgo millions of dollars in lost sales and revenue. Further, other companies like the Walt Disney Company and Anheuser-Busch were experiencing high-profile backlash to similar marketing initiatives. Shareholders, consumer groups, and conservative commentators repeatedly warned Target that its ESG DEI initiatives and LGBT activism would cause it to lose customers. In response, Target assured investors that it was carefully monitoring for any social and political risks associated with its ESG DEI initiatives. In reality, the board, both itself and through the applicable board committees, only monitored risks it perceived from failing to achieve its self-imposed ESG DEI mandates. These risks were not social or political risks of ESG DEI mandates, neither according to Target's definition, nor by how a reasonable investor would understand those words. Instead, they were risks associated with a select group of nonprofit organization stakeholders that Target worked with to adopt its ESG DEI mandates. These stakeholder-driven risks were a pretext for Target to adopt ESG DEI mandates, not a good faith oversight of the social and political risks of adopting ESG and DEI motivated corporate policies. Despite the evident risks to Target's ESG DEI mandates and the campaign in particular, Target failed to disclose that Target was subject to backlash from consumers because of its ESG DEI mandates in the upcoming LGBT campaign, rendering misleading statements in Target's 2023 proxy about Target's risks and risk oversight. The 2023 proxy also misled investors by stating that Target's proposed executive compensation plans were aligned with shareholder value when in reality, they included substantial incentive payments to executives for meeting ambiguous and subjective DEI progress mandates. In light of this misleading information, Target shareholders re-elected Target's board at the 2023 election, turned down multiple proposals via shareholder vote to reform the board's risk oversight functions, and approved executive compensation plans that incentivize Target's officers to implement DEI programs like the 2023 LGBT Pride campaign. Before I go on, I do want to say that these incentives that these executives have been getting, this will lay the groundwork, in my opinion, for other shareholders to do class action lawsuits against future executives just based on the fact that they might write ambiguous reasons they receive a bonus or do something in their personal interest. I do think that when I was reading this, because they're taking it down to the numbers and companies they're associated with and what they have a stake in, and I could see Target being one of the first to be sued, not the last to be sued. Okay. It says defendants materially false and misleading statements. On August 26, 2022 and November 23, 2022, Target filed its Form 10Q for the quarterly periods ended July 31st, 2022 and October 31st, 2022, respectively. Under the heading Risk Factors, Target stated there have been no material changes to the risk factors described in Part 1, Item IA, Risk Factors of our Form 10K for the fiscal year ended January 29th, 2022. In the Risk Factors of Target's 2021 annual report filed on Form 10K, Target said the following regarding risks associated with its ESG DEI initiatives. We believe that one of the reasons our shareholders, guests, team members, and vendors choose Target is the reputation we have built over many years for serving those constituencies and the communities in which we operate. To be successful in the future, we must continue to preserve Target's reputation. Our reputation is based in large part on perceptions, both about us and others with whom we do business, and broad access to social media makes it easy for anyone to provide public feedback that can influence perceptions of Target. It may be difficult to control negative publicity, regardless of whether it's accurate. Target's responses to crises and our position or perceived lack of position on environmental, social, and governance (ESG) matters, such as sustainability, responsible sourcing, and diversity, equity, and inclusion. And any perceived lack of transparency about those matters could harm our reputation. While reputations may take decades to build, negative incidents involving us or others with whom we do business can quickly erode trust and confidence and can result in consumer boycotts, workforce unrest or walkouts, government investigations, or litigation. For example, we have a limited ability to end our relationship with CVS, which leases space to operate their clinics and pharmacies within our stores. If our guests have negative experiences with or unfavorably view CVS or other companies with whom we have relationships, it could cause them to reduce or stop their business with us. Negative reputational incidents could adversely affect our business and results of operations, including through lost sales, loss of new store and development opportunities, or team member retention and recruiting difficulties. Target's Form 10Q for the fiscal periods ended July 31st, 2022 and October 31st, 2022, thus incorporated by reference the risk disclosure stated above and listed in Target's Form 10K for the year ended January 31st, 2022. This risk statement was false and misleading. Target omitted that there were known risks associated with its ESG DEI mandates generally and LGBT issues specifically, including the risk of customer boycotts and harm to Target's financial results. Further, Target omitted to disclose that the board was not monitoring or addressing those known risks. Thus, its statements regarding preserving Target's reputation and controlling negative publicity were also misleading, since Target was not, in fact, doing either with regard to its ESG and DEI initiatives. Item 105 required disclosure of the known risk of adverse customer reaction to Target's ESG DEI initiatives and to the campaign in particular, and Target failed to make these disclosures. Target filed its 2022 annual report March 8, 2023. Under the heading Item 1A Risk Factors, the report purported to disclose the material risk we face. Unlike Target's 2021 report, the 2022 annual report made no mention of ESG or DEI in its discussion of reputational risks that could lead to consumer boycotts. The 2022 annual report also provides no disclosure of ESG DEI backlash as a negative incident that could result in consumer boycotts. Also, unlike the 2021 annual report, the 2022 report made no mention of risks associated with Target's ESG DEI mandates. Instead, the 2022 annual report stated the opposite, that the only risk stemming from Target's ESG DEI mandates came from Target failing to adequately achieve such mandates. These statements were incorporated by reference into Target's quarterly reports with the SEC on May 26, 2023, August 25, 2023, and November 22, 2023, with each report stating that there have been no material changes to the risk factors described in the 2022 annual report. These disclosures were false and misleading. Target's 2023 LGBT Pride campaign was just 2 months away, yet it failed even to mention the risk of adverse customer reactions and shareholder reactions. The 2023 LGBT Pride campaign was an ESG DEI mandate that subjected Target to the risk of customer boycotts. These statements were false and misleading because they omitted to disclose the known risks associated with its 2023 LGBT Pride campaign, which was launched in May 2023. The risks included, among other things, alienation of Target's core customer base, customer boycotts, negative press, and a negative effect on Target's reputation. If these risks materialized, which they did, Target was subject to a decline of revenue and profits. Target management was aware of these risks. Those risks had in fact materialized following Target's response to the North Carolina transgender law, which led to customer boycotts, and following incidents of consumer backlash to previous Pride Month displays. Target's management thus had first-hand experience with the negative outcomes associated with its stance on LGBT issues. Nonetheless, Target failed to disclose the risk that its ESG DEI initiatives could harm its reputation, let alone disclose any information about the upcoming 2023 LGBT Pride campaign in its 2022 annual report. I'm going down. Hold on. Okay, it says Target incorporated by reference the risk factors cited above in paragraphs 43 and 44 when it stated there have been no material changes to the risk factors described in Part 1, Item 1A, risk factors of our Form 10K for the fiscal year ended January 28, 2023. This statement was false and misleading because the risk disclosure in the Form 10K for the fiscal year ended January 28, 2023 omitted to disclose the known risk associated with its 2023 LGBT Pride campaign, which was launched in May 2023. Okay, I'm going down just a little bit. Shortly after calls for consumer boycotts began, Target took certain remedial measures to reposition certain LGBT-themed merchandise in less prominent locations in retail locations. On May 24, 2023, Target issued a statement entitled Target Statement on 2023 Pride Collection. It states, for more than a decade, Target has offered an assortment of products aimed at celebrating Pride Month. Since introducing this year's collection, we've experienced threats impacting our team members' sense of safety and well-being while at work. Given these volatile circumstances, we are making adjustments to our plans, including removing items that have been at the center of the most significant confrontational behavior. Our focus now is on moving forward with our continuing commitment to the LGBTQIA+ community and standing with them as we celebrate Pride Month and throughout the year. This statement was false and misleading. It omitted to disclose that the reason Target removed LGBT pride-related merchandise was because it caused consumer backlash and boycotts that harmed Target's sales and related financial metrics. This was later revealed by defendant Cornell and other Target execs when they admitted that Target's 2023 Pride campaign was too prominent and thus pledged that future campaigns would be less prominent in Target stores. In Target's 2023 proxy, Target assured investors that the board monitored social and political issues and risks arising from the company's ESG mandates. In reality, the board, both itself and through the applicable board committees, oversaw only the risks Target perceived from failing to achieve Target's ESG and DEI mandates, risks which are not social or political under Target's own definition, and a common sense interpretation of social and political issues and risks. So the board's 2023 proxy described risk oversight as oversight of the various risks we face implementing our strategy is an integral and continuous part of the board's oversight of our business. The board, each committee, and management have specific roles and responsibilities with respect to those risks. The board and its committees, the board provides oversight of overall risks and seeks to ensure that our leadership team has processes in place to appropriately manage risk. Strategic risks are emphasized within that overall risk oversight responsibility because they are an integral and ongoing part of the board's oversight of our business. For example, our principal strategic risks are reviewed as part of the board's regular discussion and consideration of our strategy, including the development and monitoring of specific initiatives and their overall alignment with our strategy. Similarly, at every meeting, the board reviews the principal factors influencing our operating results, including the competitive environment, and discusses with our leadership team the major events, activities, and challenges affecting Target. The proxy also emphasized the significance of ESG matters to the board risk oversight and described the board's allocation of oversight of those matters throughout the board and its committees. While the 2023 proxy was clear that each of Target's board, the Audit and Risk Committee, and the Governance and Sustainability Committee were responsible for oversight of various ESG matters, only the Governance and Sustainability Committee was described as overseeing social and political issues and risks. And it's right here under the ESG thing. It says social and political issues and risks impacting the corporation. And then it says the Governance and Sustainability Committee's oversight responsibility for social and political issues and risks impacting the corporation is separate from its other responsibilities, including the oversight of the identification of ESG-related topics, philanthropy and community engagement, and even public advocacy and political activities. The 2023 proxy's representation that the Governance and Sustainability Committee oversaw the social and political issues and risks of Target's ESG matters were false and misleading. Rather than overseeing social and political issues and or risks arising from Target's ESG matters, the Governance and Sustainability Committee oversaw Target's engagement with stakeholders to advance ESG DEI aligned goals. The Governance Committee lacked express oversight responsibility for social and political issues and risks created by ESG matters. The Governance Committee addresses ESG topics on a consolidated basis by allocating responsibilities for ESG topics among the board and its committees, and by overseeing our overall approach to corporate responsibility. It also oversaw management's responsibility to instill ESG-related priorities into our business operations, including product design and development and other business tasks. Going down. Target touted the new committee structure as a way for the board to enhance its approach to oversight of risk and ESG matters by reallocating to its committee's oversight responsibility for ESG and DEI matters. The background to the Governance and Sustainability's ESG risk oversight responsibilities and context of Target's intended alignment with corporate best practices supports the meaning of overseeing social and political issues and risks. That includes the social and political risk of both adopting ESG DEI mandates and failing to adopt them. Contrary to a reasonable investor's understanding of social and political issues and risks, and unlike the boards of the companies discussed supra, Target's board instead oversaw only the issues and risks arising from the perceived failure to achieve its ESG and DEI mandates. Rather than overseeing social and political issues and risks to protect shareholder interests by serving Target's customers, Target's board and the Governance and Sustainability Committee instead focused on potential negative responses by stakeholders to Target's perceived failure to achieve ESG and DEI mandates. It says, we cannot guarantee that we will achieve these goals and initiatives. Any failure or perceived failure by us to achieve these goals and initiatives or to otherwise meet evolving and varied stakeholder expectations could adversely affect our reputation and result in legal and regulatory proceedings against us. So they're saying that basically the Target execs acknowledge there would be a risk if they didn't meet it, but they did not acknowledge the risk if they met it, but the backlash from their core market that would not like the initiatives and they would just not shop with Target. So again, the boycott mentioned here is the boycott of their core customers not liking the direction Target was going, not the current possible boycott that's happening right now. Okay. Target's main concern regarding ESG-related risk was the failure to meet stakeholder expectations concerning its ESG and DEI commitments, which could adversely affect the company. Risks arising from failure to meet stakeholder expectations are not social or political issues and risks. Stakeholder expectation risk is a separate category of risk arising from negative responses from the company's stakeholders. As evidenced by the company's focus on stakeholders under its ESG risk framework, the Governance and Sustainability Committee did not oversee social and political issues and risks. The fact that Target engaged in the uniquely controversial 2023 LGBT Pride campaign is evidence of the board's lack of oversight of social and political issues and risks. Even if the board's focus on its stakeholder expectations and ESG DEI risk included oversight of social and political issues or risks, the board's selective focus of issues only associated with the political left rendered misleading the 2023 proxy's representations that the board oversaw social and political issues and risks. A reasonable investor would conclude that the governance and sustainability committee's oversight of social and political issues and risks related to the ESG matters would include any material risk related to Target's ESG mandates, whether from the failure to achieve ESG mandates or from the pursuit of ESG mandates. Targets instead oversaw only the issues and risks arising from Target's perceived failure to achieve its ESG and DEI mandates. Target further demonstrated its oversight of only left-wing ESG risks by engaging in an ideologically motivated campaign to restrict books on LGBT issues from a conservative perspective from its stores and other sales platforms. Target engaged in and continues to engage in this campaign for no rational purpose despite ongoing political backlash. So Target's getting backlash for not putting books in their stores that are basically anti-LGBT. I'm saying that so I can summarize. That's the ones that are getting backlash for monetarily. At least they were 2023, 2022. Target stakeholders skew heavily in a distinct and left-wing ideological direction and do not appear to include any culturally or socially conservative groups representative of the average Target shopper. So for them, the average Target shopper is, well, like they said, middle America is their core. Even if the phrase social and political issues and risks meant only left wing, pro ESG issues and risks, the 2023 proxy was still misleading because Target omitted to state the material fact that those were the issues that the board viewed as material social and political issues and risks arising from Target's ESG mandates. Target's 2023 proxy asserted that the board acted to advance shareholder interests across all company transactions, including with respect to ESG DEI mandates. The 2023 proxy communicated that the board prefers to maintain the flexibility to determine which leadership structure best serves the interests of Target and our shareholders, and would act to prohibit any transaction it determines to be inconsistent with the interests of Target and its shareholders. These representations were material because a reasonable investor would have understood these statements to clarify that, despite Target's commitment of significant business resources to ESG DEI mandates, the board and management remained focused on shareholder value. Those representations were false because Target's ESG and DEI mandates were formulated and enforced to serve collateral stakeholder interests. Target's DEI mandates did not contribute to Target's growth. Analysts credit Target's growth before the 2023 LGBT Pride campaign to its e-commerce strategy and investments. Target's digital comparable sales grew 29% after leaping 155% in Q3 of 2020, while Amazon's Q3 net sales grew 15% and Walmart's Q3 U.S. e-commerce sales grew 8%. And that was from Kunal Chopra, What Target is Doing Right in the Pandemic Era E-Commerce Race. The report did not mention DEI. Target's board and management delegated the implementation of Target's ESG and DEI mandates to Target officials who suffered from disabling personal conflicts of interest, including with some of the very activists that Target partnered with in adopting and pursuing the ESG and DEI mandates. So they're citing an article, which there could be more articles, but they're citing an article that showed the last time or one of the recent times Target had an increase did not at all credit anything to DEI or their ESG mandate. It was actually, related to something else. So they're saying that if basically the defense most likely cannot be, but we did have growth during this time because you can't credit that to DEI, according to what they're citing. For example, Target senior executive Carlos Saavedra served as treasurer at GLSEN, and Target's executive vice president and chief food and beverage officer Rick Gomez served on the board of GLSEN. These positions imposed conflicting duties on those officers and precluded them from implementing Target's ESG and DEI mandates in good faith to advance shareholder interests. Target's chief diversity officer also indicated her personal commitment to advancing racial equity for its own sake, even if it was provocative, and singled out white women for special obligations to this cause. This conduct indicates that the 2023 proxy statement that the board oversaw Target's ESG and DEI mandates to advance shareholder interests, which was misleading. In seeking shareholders' approval of Target's executive compensation plans, the 2023 proxy represented that the plans aligned executives' incentives with maximizing shareholder value, when in fact the plans were designed to substantially incentivize executives to pursue DEI mandates. Target also attested that the executive compensation programs align with our pay for performance philosophy and are structured based on financial and operational performance and shareholder outcomes. A reasonable investor would understand these representations to mean that Target's executive compensation was substantially aligned with advancing Target shareholders' pecuniary interest in Target stock performance as measured by quantifiable financial performance metrics. In reality, Target awarded substantial amounts of executive compensation based on its executives' performance of satisfying ambiguous and subjective DEI goals to the detriment of investors. In fact, substantial sums of executives' compensation were based on Target's own internal and subjective assessment of executives' performance along DEI metrics. A footnote in the 2023 proxy further explained that Target's executive compensation included a component ambiguously labeled STIP, Short-Term Incentive Plan. The 2023 proxy elaborated on the STIP component of executive compensation in a text box that followed immediately below this footnote labeled with the subheading, How Annual CEO Pay is Tied to Performance. And it says, the short-term payout range from 0 to 200% of goal depending on sales, incentive operating income, and the assessment of the team scorecard. In a following section under the heading Incentive Measures and Actual Performance, the 2023 proxy provided our STIP is based on a combination of absolute financial goals and progress made toward key strategic priorities. These statements were misleading and deceptive based on a final section of the 2023 proxy that was buried below the initial declaration that executive compensation was aligned with shareholder value. Under a heading titled Fiscal 2022 Team Scorecard Assessment, the proxy described that the team scorecard component of the STIP emphasized the business outcomes we expect from the execution of strategic priorities. Those priorities or specific team scorecard progress indicators included that executives advanced progress on our new 3-year enterprise DEI goals. Target's DEI goals were not mentioned in the guidelines for executive compensation. This conflicting information in the 2023 proxy rendered Target's representation that its executive compensation was aligned with shareholder value misleading. Negligence allegations. Defendants were negligent in issuing the foregoing false and misleading statements in violation of Section 14A of the Exchange Act. Defendants were aware or should have been aware of red flags pertaining to Target being subject to harm caused by consumer backlash to its ESG DEI mandates. Defendants were on notice that Target was subject to risk due to its activism on LGBT political issues because Target had been the subject of a large customer boycott that was organized following Target's response to the North Carolina transgender bathroom law, another LGBT political issue. It says defendant Cornell, which was the CEO, was motivated to mislead investors about the risks associated with Target's ESG DEI mandates because his compensation was partly based on Target's advancement of ESG DEI initiatives like the 2023 LGBT Pride campaign. He failed to oversee risks. He failed to disclose risks. I'm summarizing for y'all a little bit. Okay, going down. Defendant Cornell was aware of the teams working on Pride prior to the campaign's launch. He knew about the board's lack of oversight of the ESG DEI risk. He acknowledged the heightened risk. And then the defendant Target knew by and through the defendant Cornell, who was responsible for making the false and misleading statements detailed herein. Okay. Loss causation, it says plaintiff was damaged as a result of defendant's misleading statements. From the start of the class period through present, Target's stock price is down 13%, while its main rival and peer, Walmart, is up 125%. Likewise, the S&P 500 index is up 50% during this same time frame. The bulk, if not entirety, of the underperformance began after the backlash from the DEI initiatives in May 2023 and continued to present. The declines in Target's stock price beginning May 17, 2023, including but not limited to the declines summarized below, are directly attributable to the market absorbing information, correcting defendants' misrepresentations and omissions, and or the materialization of risks concealed by defendants from Target's investors and shareholders. So they're saying they suffered substantial economic losses as the price of Target stock fell in response to the issuance of partial corrective disclosures and or the materialization of risks concealed by the defendants from Target's investors and shareholders. Going down. On May 18th, 2023, the American Family Association, one of the leading organizations supporting the boycott against the LGBT campaigns and stuff like that, published a blog post encouraging consumers to officially join with the 1.57 million others who have pledged to boycott Target. Additional partial corrective disclosures occurred through defendants Cornell and Target statements made on May 24th, 2023, that admitted controversy surrounding the 2023 LGBT Pride campaign. However, these statements downplayed the scope and intensity of the consumer backlash to the campaign and impaired the market's ability to process information about the backlash and prolong the period of the corrective disclosure. The price of Target stock declined from $160.96 at the market close on May 17, 2023 to $124.12 at the market close on June 14, 2023. In stark contrast, Target's peers saw their stock prices increase during the same period. For example, from May to June 2023, Walmart common stock increased from a price of $149.53 to $156.87, and Costco saw its common stock increase from $495 to $527.20 over the same period. On August 16, 2023, on the earnings call, defendants and other Target execs revealed that the 2023 LGBT Pride campaign harmed the company's earnings and other financial metrics. Defendants also revealed that Target's removal and relocation of LGBT Pride-themed merchandise aimed to mitigate the strategic errors Target made with the 2023 LGBT Pride campaign rather than just respond to isolated threats. From the day before the Q2 2023 earnings report release, August 15, 2023 to October 6, 2023, Target stock fell from closing prices of $125.05 to $105.01 per share. On November 20th, 2024, before the market opened, Target announced its quarterly results for the third quarter of 2024. So third quarter would have been, oh Lord, April through June, right? No, July through September, July, August, September. Third quarter, I think it's July, August, September. It says the company announced that its GAAP adjusted earnings per share were $1.85 compared to $2.10 in the same quarter of 2023, a decline of 11.9%. The company also reported disappointing guidance, including approximately flat comparable sales. This news caused the price of Target stock to drop precipitously from a close of 156 Thank you. From a close of $156 on November 19th, 2024 to a close of $121.72 on November 20th, 2024, a decline of 22%. The stock declined 22% in one day, wiping out $16 billion in market cap. Target reported disappointing earnings and guidance as it continued to grapple with lingering effects of its ill-advised DEI campaigns that turned away customers and apparently some customers for good. Notably, Target's performance was in stark contrast to its main rival Walmart that provided stellar performance during the same time frame. These losses resulted from further materializations of the risks associated with Target's LGBT and Pride campaigns. So, I also want to clarify that this 22% drop that they're reporting is from their third quarter of 2024. I'm just trying to keep the date straight because of how these headlines are mixing up things that are taking place now versus what's being cited in this lawsuit. Notably, Target's performance was in stark. Oh, I said that. Okay. The re-election of Target's directors in 2023 was an essential link in causing the 2023 LGBT Pride campaign and the resulting losses to plaintiff and other Target shareholders. I'm going down. Mm-mm. It says that the 2023 Proxy's Director Skills and Diversity Matrix also notably updated its definition of reputation management to include experience in crisis response. And also, what did they say? They also added language to each of their biographies not previously included in Target's proxy statements, noting defendants' skills that enhance the board's collective oversight capability. And part of this lawsuit is their lack of proper oversight of certain risks. Okay, I'm going down some. They reword the same sentences every now and again, so I'm just trying not to reread the same too much to y'all. It says the independent chairman proposal noted that Target had not yet adopted this corporate governance best practice and that Target's current arrangement allowed the chairman CEO to ignore the advice and feedback from independent directors, suggesting Target does not take the role of lead director seriously. And I think they were trying to, yeah, it says they were trying to separate the positions of the CEO and board chairman. Okay, it says this was also an essential link to the 2023 LGBT Pride campaign because it permitted defendant Cornell to maintain outsized influence over the board, setting him to promote his agenda and prevent the board's proper oversight of social and political issues and risks arising from his management's engagement in the 2023 LGBT Pride campaign. The independent chairman proposal would have removed defendant Cornell from the board and thereby removed a chief source of Target's pro ESG DEI initiatives, allowing for improved oversight. At the 2023 annual meeting, shareholders approved the following resolution. Resolved that the shareholders approve the compensation awarded to the NEOs, and they say what NEOs are down here somewhere, as described in the proxy statement, tabular disclosures, and other narrative executive compensation disclosures in the 2023 proxy statement. For the executive compensation approved at the 2023 meeting, performance along the 3-year enterprise DE and I goals on which Target's executive compensation was based, including Target's goal to increase relevance with diverse guests and offer more products from diverse suppliers. Target's management, including defendant Cornell, also would have reasonably expected that engaging in the Pride campaign would improve their outcomes under the team scorecard for DEI progress and thereby materially increase their compensation. There it is. NEO is named executive officer. In reliance on the misleading executive compensation disclosures, Target paid executives, including defendant Cornell, compensation that was not validly approved by shareholders. At the 2023 annual meeting, Target shareholders approved over $36.9 million in compensation to Target NEOs, named executive officers. In the 2023 executive compensation plan, executives received over $1.5 million in, I think it was short-term incentive payout or something like that, for the team scorecard component that included progress on DEI goals. Target secured shareholder approval of these sums via misleading proxy statements that tainted the shareholder approval process and renders these amounts unauthorized by shareholders. And then they talk about the stock dropping again. And it says Target enacted another Pride campaign in 2024, so they continue to market and sell LGBT themed content. On May 31st, 2024, Target issued a press release stating that we support and celebrate LGBTQIA plus community during Pride Month and year-round. The press release specified the various ways it was celebrating during Pride Month and throughout the year. Customers never returned to Target following the 2023 and 2024 Pride campaigns. Target continued to suffer from declining demand and weak revenues. And then we talked about the gap. We talked about the percentage decline. And we talked about the 22% from the third quarter of 2024. It says the market for Target's common stock was open, well-developed, and efficient at all relevant times. As a result of the materially false statements, Target's common stock traded at artificially inflated prices during the class period. Plaintiff other members of the class purchased or otherwise acquired the company's common stock, relying upon the integrity of the market price of Target's common stock and market information relating to Target and have been damaged thereby. So, causes of action. Count 1, violations of Section 10B of the Exchange Act and SEC Rule 10b-5 against defendants Target and Cornell. Count 2, for violations of Section 20A of the Exchange Act against the individual defendants. Count 3, for violations of Section 14A of the Exchange Act and SEC Rule 14A9 against all defendants. And prayer for relief, determining that this action is a proper class action under Rule 23 of the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure, declaring that defendants Cornell and Target violated Section 10B and 14A of the Exchange Act, and that defendant Cornell violated Section 20A of the Exchange Act, awarding compensatory damages in favor of plaintiff and other class members against all defendants, jointly and severally, for all damages sustained as a result of defendants' wrongdoing in an amount to be proven at trial, including interest thereon, awarding plaintiff and the class their reasonable costs and expenses incurred in this action, including counsel fees and expert fees, and such other and further relief as the court may deem just and proper. So I will say this, for shareholders, it's hard to separate, but I will say money is green, money is green, money is green to them. So had the initiative helped and brought in more customers, and the boycott not have been felt for people that boycotted because of the 2023 LGBT Pride Initiative and other things, they obviously wouldn't care because their pockets would still be filled and the money would be green either way. But they're suing because they're saying that you overvalued stock, basically, because you knew of the backlash that you got before you even did this next 2023 proxy and or 2023 initiative and things like that. And also your compensatory reward to the executives is very ambiguous, and we don't, and you of course would grade yourself high and do things on the scorecard you created to rate yourself high to make sure you get your incentive and stuff like that. So that's what I gathered from this class action lawsuit. And I mean, we'll see what happens like once it's published. It's in Florida, Middle District, Florida, but the one I saw doesn't look anything like this, and it's not even the same defendant. So I was like, I'm not touching that one because this one at least looks like someone actually, got the experts to look at this and write this. So this is the one I felt safe with reading, and also it matched the articles that I ended up looking at. So yeah, but those headlines I was reading that were being fed to me before I read it myself did not talk about this like this. But hey, Zane, hey everybody. All right, so that's all I have. I won't keep you anymore because I mean that was almost an hour. That was a long one. Thank y'all for sticking with me. I appreciate you, really, really do, especially on reading class action lawsuits. So I definitely appreciate y'all's time, and I will see y'all soon enough. All right, talk to you later. Bye.